Hello again, everyone. This is day 2 of our quarantined yet confident study. They're based on the feedback we got yesterday. People seem to find this helpful, so we're going to keep trying to do this as much as possible. We're your church family, and we feel very blessed to be part of your life. And want to try to provide some encouragement and inspiration and hope and peace and calm during these very strange times and kind of difficult times in some ways. So we'll keep doing this as often as we can. We have other plans to do more types of Bible studies for you, hopefully some things that are a little bit more in-depth too. But for now, this is what we're doing. Just a quick note before we get to our lesson for today. We are still planning to stream our Wednesday night services tomorrow at 7 o'clock. We are still planning to stream our Sunday services, 8:30 service, I should say. Things change so rapidly, as you've experienced yourself this last couple weeks here, so stay tuned for information on that. But right now, that's the plan. We are going to cancel Sunday school and Bible class for the foreseeable future until things calm down. So just the services for now, but those should all be available online. Okay, I'm excited to talk with you about our lesson for today, which is God providing manna and quail for the Israelites in the desert. I don't know if you've been to the grocery stores or if you've seen videos of the grocery stores lately, but it felt like a good time to talk about God providing. And in our lesson today, the Israelites, maybe 2 million people, are in the middle of a wilderness, and God still feeds them. So, it's 2020. This is like 3,500 years later, but nothing's really changed in that regard. God still can provide for us no matter what. So I thought we'd talk about at the outset of the lesson here. If you think about a time in your life where maybe you look back at the point where you were younger and you thought about fears or complaints that you had back then, maybe seemed so valid back then, and now they seem a little silly or ridiculous now. The one that I thought of was when I would go swimming in the public pool. I was like 8 or 9 years old in Thiensville, Wisconsin, where I grew up. So it's just your typical public pool. I would jump off the high dive, and right before I jumped off, I would think to myself, I bet there's a shark in there in the deep end. I had seen the movie Jaws when I was like 4 years old. If you're a member of this church, you've probably heard me talk about being scared of sharks at least once. I'm very open about it. I'm working through it. But I would jump off the high dive, and at the last second, I think there's probably a shark in there. There is literally zero chance of a shark being in the deep end. But I would hit the water, and I would try to play cool. Try to like swim over to the side as casually as possible. But like in my heart of hearts, I was pedaling, swimming as fast as I can because there's probably a shark down there. Now that I look back in that, I think, yeah, that was kind of dumb. But I was still halfway convinced it might be true back then. And so the point being, the Israelites in our lesson at the very beginning, they're losing their minds and saying, we're going to die out here. There's no food for us to eat. And we look back at that, 3,500 years in the future now, say, that is ridiculous. There was no chance of God not providing for them. And I hope that sticks with us today, too. There's zero chance that God is not going to provide for us today. What is that going to look like? God knows. God knows exactly what to do that's best for us. So that is our confidence. So let's talk about the lesson itself. So it's maybe about a month after the Red Sea, crossing of the Red Sea, which was yesterday's lesson. And the Israelites feel like they're pretty much out of food. And their ideal response would have been to say, well, God parted a body of water when it was in front of us. He's probably got this figured out too. That's not what they do. They complain against Moses and Aaron, the leaders. They grumble against God, and they look back at their time in Egypt in slavery, and they say, man, it was so good being back there. If only we were back there where we had food to eat, which is super ridiculous because it was terrible being in slavery. But that's how their sinful minds worked back then. It's still how our sinful minds work now. We complain about our current situation and kind of yearn for past days, when the reality is in those past days, we had lots of complaints too. It's just hard for us as sinful human beings to be satisfied. And the more we are confident in God's plan, just the easier life gets in lots of ways. So I don't know what you would do if you were God in this situation. If you'd brought these people, millions of people, out of Egypt and slavery, and brought them safely across the Red Sea and defeated all of their enemies, and now they're complaining against you. I think if I was, shooting from the hip a little bit, I would really let them have it and just say, you know what? I brought you this far. You guys are on your own. Or maybe do something a little bit more violent and just destroy them all at once. But instead, in verse 4, we're in Exodus 16, The Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. Man, how awesome is God? These people grumble and complain and doubt him, and his response is, okay, I'll give you bread from heaven. Literally, bread from heaven is going to appear on the ground, so you're not going to die. You're going to be fine. God is patient, compassionate, merciful, like way more than we could ever imagine him being. God is so good, and he still treats us that way today. So Moses and Aaron gather the people around, and they say, this is not good that you were complaining against God, but God is merciful. The same God who brought you out of Egypt is going to take care of you now. And the glory of God appears in a cloud. And I just think if I was one of those Israelites who'd been complaining against God, and Moses said, hey, look over there. There's God, the glory of God, I would say, we're dead. This was a huge mistake. But again, God comes in his grace. He comes with this plan to take care of them. And it's not just the manna that he's, this bread on the ground that he's going to provide. He actually lets quail appear, and the people get to eat, these birds that just sit there and let themselves be captured. So 2 million people are given, essentially poultry and this kind of honey tasting thing to eat. When I was growing up and hearing this lesson in grade school and Sunday school, I always thought of the manna being like Frosted Flakes. And we always seem to have this lesson right before snack, and it would make me really, really hungry. And sometimes I would take Frosted Flakes to school as a snack because I really like them. They call this, the bread on the ground, they call it manna, which literally means what is it? Because they had never seen it before. Like, God is doing a miracle. He's just providing food on the ground for them, which is fantastic. They did have some instructions for what they were supposed to do with this food. They weren't supposed to take more than... it says an omer in the Bible, which the theory is it's maybe about 2 quarts or 2 liters for you fans of the metric system out there. But they were supposed to take just this small amount of food. It'd be a way to show their trust. We'd just take the small amount of food, and we know the next day God is going to provide. Some people didn't listen. Some people gathered a bunch, and Moses had told them, just whatever you take, eat. Don't let it sit in your tent overnight. And some people, didn't trust God, that God was going to keep providing this miracle bread for them. So they kept it overnight, and they woke up. It was pretty gross. There were maggots and stuff in it. And God was trying to teach them, no, trust me on a day-to-day basis, which, man, is such a good lesson for us right now, isn't it? Every day of this quarantine feels a little crazier than the last. And God is maybe helping us learn it's okay. It doesn't matter, I should say, what our earthly circumstances are. God hasn't changed. We are still under the protection of this almighty and super patient and merciful God. And that's honestly all that matters. That allows us to be patient and calm and helps us be loving to other people who are in need. And God had also said on the 6th day, the day before the Sabbath, they were to gather extra food. And because in the Sabbath there wouldn't be any food on the ground for them, so they would gather extra on the Sabbath, and or the day before the Sabbath, I should say, and then they would wake up on that Sabbath, the 7th day, and there would be no food on the ground, which another occasion for them to trust. At the very end of the lesson, God tells Moses and Aaron to take some of the manna, put it in a jar, and put it in the Ark of the Covenant. So then as they carried this on their way for the next 40 years, they would have this reminder that God took care of us when we thought we were going to die and we complained against him. God said, you're not going to die. I'll provide food for you. So it was a reminder for them. And I was thinking about what a strange time this is for us right now. What are some things that you and I could do? Maybe writing a journal or writing down some thoughts somewhere, or recording a video to share with future generations to say, yeah, this was a really strange time in our lives, and there were lots of earthly reasons to doubt. But here's how God took care of us back then. And a lot of it had to do with him taking care of us through his word and his promises, but a lot of it had to do with him taking care of us through each other. I think we have so many opportunities to love and provide for each other right now, especially people who are in those high-risk groups. What a great way we can show our Savior by doing that. So obviously the main points of this lesson have to do with God's going to take care of us. It doesn't matter what the situation looks like in front of us. God is going to find a way to provide, even if that way to provide means we get called home to heaven, which ultimately is the goal anyway. What we needed most is forgiveness for our sins. We needed spiritual bread, water of life, which we talked about in our sermon a few weeks ago from John chapter 4. God will not stop taking care of you. He sent his son to die for you, and his son rose again from the dead. You are not out of God's care today. So I just want to leave you with that thought. God is still watching over you. I'm with you. I know this is a strange and crazy time, but it's not too big. It's not too difficult. It's not too strange or crazy for our God. May that God protect and watch over us. All right, don't forget the live streaming on Wednesday and Sunday. Maybe we'll see you back tomorrow. Until then, may God protect and bless us. Thanks.